3 sinister true highway horror tales, revealed nightmarish encounters with the haunted and cursed. Sarah gripped the wheel of her minivan, each mile dragging her deeper into the eerie shadows of Fletcher, Nebraska. After a grueling night shift at the hospital, her hazy mind danced with unease as a thick veil of clouds swallowed the stars, wrapping her in a dark shroud. The highway stretched before her, a dark ribbon flanked by towering trees, their gnarled branches resembling skeletal fingers clawing at the sky. Memories of chilling stories her grandmother told echoed in her thoughts. The infamous Miller farmhouse marked by tragedy and temptation, where whispers of an evil spirit haunted the nights. A shiver raced down her spine, ignited by the stories that latched onto her mind like a vice. Glancing at the empty road, dread twisted in her stomach. Suddenly, her phone vibrated violently in her lap, a text from Martha, her elderly neighbor, curdling her blood. "Stay away from Miller's. I'm serious, Sarah. It's not safe." Panic struck her heart. Superstitious gossip about the farmhouse flooded her mind. When was the last time she drove past that cursed site? The idea felt silly, yet terrifying, as shadows seemed to dance among the trees, mocking her courage. Then out of the corner of her eye, headlights caught someone, on the roadside. A figure swaddled in a heavy coat, arms outstretched, helpless, flailing as if trapped in a nightmare. Anxiety gripped her, but the instinct to help crept in. She slowed down, rolling down her window as she squinted into the dark. "Chad!" she gasped, recognizing the disheveled face of a family friend. But before she could ask what happened, she saw the wildness in his eyes, a flicker that shot an icy bolt of dread through her. "Sarah, please, I need your help. It's not what it seems." His voice was laced with urgency, but deeper inside, dread twisted like a knife. Was it Chad, or was something far more sinister pretending to be him? Fear wrapped around her throat, tightening as her mind raced through the neighborhood gossip. Disappearances, haunting stories, and community secrets. The danger could be lurking nearby. Had she been conned into trusting a facade? Before she could respond, urgency surged in her chest. She slammed on the gas, tires screeching, leaving him behind in a cloud of dark panic. Shadows stretched across the road as she sped away. Laughing whispers danced through the air like taunting ghosts. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Desperation curled inside her as familiar landmarks blurred into ominous shapes, questions spiraling in her mind like a dark storm. What other horrors lay beneath the surface of this community she called home? Each glance into the rearview mirror sent chills racing down her spine. Was something following her, or was it the community's secrets closing in, suffocating her? Adrenaline pumped through her veins as she glanced back toward the farmhouse. The haunting laugh echoed, chilling her to the bone. The road twisted before her, veiling the truth of her home and entangling her in shadows she couldn't escape. The reality settled heavily on her. The most terrifying horrors lurked not just in forgotten tales, but within the very hearts of those she had always trusted. No longer could she dismiss the whispers. The road was swallowing her whole, and the question loomed. Could she confront these truths, or would she forever run from the dark that waited at her doorstep? The trees screamed past her, their twisted limbs looming like the hands of the damned. Sarah's breath came in short bursts, panic clawing at her throat as she raced down the road, her mind spinning wildly. The warning from Martha echoed relentlessly, along with Chad's desperate eyes. What was it they both knew that she didn't? As she entered the outskirts of Fletcher, the unsettling atmosphere thickened. Streetlights flickered, casting transient shadows that danced on the pavement. Each light felt like a mark against the encroaching dread that surged in her chest. She could almost hear the whispers of the townsfolk, the secrets woven deeply into the fabric of this place she had always called home. "Think, Sarah, think." Her voice trembled, a desperate mantra to stave off the rising tide of fear. She remembered how they spoke about the farmhouse. It wasn't just a place. It was a local legend wrapped in tales of regret, pain, and sorrow. The Miller family had vanished without a trace, leaving behind their blood-stained walls. Everyone said the house was cursed, marked by an evil that bled into the land. Her hands tightened on the steering wheel, knuckles white as she turned right on Elm Street, hoping to get to her apartment without encountering anything worse than her thoughts. But the moment she glanced toward the old mill, she gasped. There stood a figure, head bowed under the flickering streetlight. No, not just a figure, Chad. His coat flapped in the wind, the same wild look in his eyes now more pronounced. But this time he wasn't flailing for help. He stood absolutely still, staring right into her, a chilling grin spreading across his face, too wide, too unnatural. "Get away from him, Sarah." A voice rang in her memory, Martha's warning, but she couldn't peel her gaze away. "Come back, Sarah," Chad called, his voice dripping with an eerie calmness that sent shivers down her spine. "You need to help us." Images of old newspaper clippings flooded her mind. Missing posters, flashing red lights, frantic voices searching for lost souls. The moments tethered her in place, unable to merge the facade of Chad she once knew with the man now standing in front of her. She slammed on the brakes, tires screeching, heart pounding. The night wrapped around her in a suffocating grip as the realization came crashing down. It wasn't just about the farmhouse or even the warnings. It was about survival. She had to decide now. What part of Fletcher could she trust? Suddenly a cacophony of distant wailing shattered the night. It weaved in and out, rising to a crescendo that felt like something or someone was warning her of the unspeakable that lay ahead. Nightmares clawed at the edges of her mind as she fought to keep her thoughts clear. With trembling hands, she shifted the gear into reverse. It felt wrong, like a coward's escape, but the urge to flee overtook the guilt. As she began to pull away, a loud crack echoed from the woods beside her. The sound was like a gunshot, jarring and savage. In the rearview mirror she saw him again, Chad's impossibly wide grin twisting into sheer malevolence as shadows writhed behind him. "Don't you dare leave," he howled, the voice no longer human. Her heart raced. She couldn't wait anymore. She roared forward, the minivan lunging ahead, tires biting into the asphalt as she escaped the thing that had taken her friend. But as she crossed into the unlit stretch of road, the weight of darkness settled upon her again. The highway loomed ahead, but the moment she glanced at her rearview mirror, a bone-chilling realization sunk in. She wasn't alone. Something was following her. Every inch of her screamed to run, to drive faster, but what if it caught her? What if the legends were true? What shadow lurked just out of sight, waiting for the perfect moment? A deep breath caught in her chest, warring between her instincts to escape and the pull of curiosity lurking in the shadows. Her phone buzzed again, another alert from Martha, but just as she reached for it, the lights flickered and died, plunging her into inky darkness. In that black void, a whisper echoed just behind her ear, "Help me." What does it really mean to help? The road twisted into the unknown, and she was trapped, spiraling into a deeper nightmare than she could ever imagine. The night was a shroud, cocooning Sarah in a chilling nothingness. Panic set in, the kind of panic that left her fingers fumbling over the dashboard, searching for a flicker of light, a reprieve from the black. The hum of the engine suddenly seemed too loud, the sound vibrating through her bones as it fought against the impending silence. She pressed the gas pedal down harder, feeling the minivan surge forward, but the dread clung to her like a second skin. each breath hitched in her throat, each moment stretching into eternity as she tried to shake off the whisper still echoing in her head. "Help me!" Her heart thudded like a drum, drowning out the sound of everything else. She couldn't afford to think beyond the road ahead. Just keep moving. Just keep driving. But then a sound broke through, the rustle of branches scratching against the side of the van as though fingers were reaching out, trying to grasp her. The darkness pressed in so tightly it felt like a vice. She squinted, desperately searching for anything. Headlights, a sign, a flicker of hope. And then she saw it, a dim glow ahead, flickering like a lost candle in the abyss. It was just a few 100 yards away, but it felt like a promise. Each push of her foot sent the vehicle barreling toward it, fueled by adrenaline and a thin thread of desperation. The light led her to a roadside diner, a relic from another time. It sat alone in the darkness like an oasis, the neon sign flickering open in desperate strokes against the night. Relief washed over her, mixed with the icy grip of fear. She needed to stop. She needed answers. Exiting the van, the chill in the air slapped her face, a stark reminder that warmth was fading. As she approached the door, the bell rang softly, its sound lost amongst the whispers that seemed to linger in the air. Inside, it was dim and empty. The smell of stale coffee washed over her, and dust clung to the dim light fixtures like the remnants of long-forgotten stories. "Hello?" she called, her voice shaky, breaking the stillness that wrapped around her. No answer, just echoes. She took a cautious step further, her eyes scanning the space. Empty booths lined the walls, and an old jukebox stood silent in the corner, a relic of another era. Was she really alone? Or had she wandered into the maw of something that had claimed her before? The hairs on her arms stood on end when she spotted movement, a shadow shifting just beyond her line of sight. She turned sharply, heart racing, fists clenching at her sides, but there was nothing. Just her, and the pervasive silence that now felt more sinister than welcoming. "Just the wind," she whispered to herself, though deep down she knew it was more than that. Something was undoubtedly watching her, waiting. As she moved to the counter, her eyes fell upon a newspaper clipping pinned haphazardly on a corkboard. "Miller family disappears." The headline screamed of the very story that haunted her thoughts. She could feel the weight of the darkness lurking behind her, creeping closer as she approached the edge of reason. Suddenly, the bell above the door rang again, jerking her back to awareness. The door swung open slowly, and her body froze. A figure stepped inside, drenched in shadows, face obscured, but she could feel the gaze piercing through the haze. "Run!" it whispered, voice scraping against her like nails on a chalkboard. The glow of the diner felt like it was flickering, fading into the void as she blinked in disbelief. What did it mean? Everything she thought she left behind clawed its way back, the weight of the curse wrapping tightly around her throat like a noose. As the lights began to falter, she took a hasty step back, heart racing again. What could she trust now? If she turned to flee, would that thing behind her catch her? In that split second, the shadows swelled, and with them came a deafening silence. The question hung suspended in the air, thick and palpable. Would she stay, or try to escape the terror that was coming? Her breath quickened as she staggered back from the figure. The diner, once a place of refuge, now felt like a prison. The flickering neon outside seemed to sway mockingly, drawing her back into the chaos of the night. She needed to make a choice: stay and confront the unknown, or run into the dark, where uncertainty festered. "Run!" the shadow whispered again, its voice weaving through her mind like smoke. It felt hypnotic, almost comforting in its urgency, but she knew better. There was no safety in the blackness outside. With a surge of instinct, Sarah turned back toward the door, heart pounding in her throat. The lights above her dimmed further, invading her mind with a restless pulse. Her fingers brushed against the cool metal of the swinging door. just a little more. But a sudden crash echoed behind her. A plate dropped, shattering like her resolve. She dared a glance over her shoulder, and dread snaked through her. The figure had moved. It loomed at the counter now, its dark shape growing ever closer, a hungry spectre coiling through the stale air between them. Her feet felt glued to the floor. Panic surged through her chest, twisting like a vice. "Get out!" came the rasping voice again, and this time it sounded almost desperate. Sarah lunged for the door, throwing it open wide, her body propelled by adrenaline. She stumbled outside, the night air a sharp shock against her skin. She spun around, bracing herself against the doorframe, but the figure was gone. Had it ever been real? Or just a figment of her mind spurred by fear? But the diner felt wrong, too wrong. The very shadows clung to her, waiting, watching. She had to leave, but a growl of an engine cut through the silence, rumbling like thunder across the deserted lot. A battered car pulled up, headlights slicing through the dark like daggers. The driver's side door swung open, and a gaunt woman stepped out, her eyes wide and wild. "Not safe here," she shouted, glancing nervously around. "You've got to hide." "What?" Sarah's voice came out trembling. "What are you talking about?" "There's something in the diner," she said, her tone urgent yet fearful. "It doesn't let anyone leave." Panic rocketed through Sarah as the memories flashed. Stories of disappearances, shadows lurking, whispers haunting her. What had been casually scribbled in that newspaper was now peeling back layers of reality she didn't know existed. "Run!" the woman urged, glancing back at the diner, as if she could feel the presence creeping out. "Get in the car!" Every instinct screamed to listen, but something froze her in place. She glanced back at the diner. Something moved in there, a flicker just out of sight. "Please!" The woman's voice broke her daze. The urgency pressed upon her like the weight of darkness. Sarah took a shaky breath, guilt clawing at her instincts. She didn't want to leave anyone behind, but she couldn't stay. The shadows inside were calling to her, and she felt their fingers brush against her skin. The woman's fear radiated like heat, pushing Sarah toward action. With a shuddering heart, Sarah turned and bolted for the car, the crunch of gravel beneath her feet echoing like a countdown. But as she reached for the door, she could feel cold breath on the back of her neck. "Don't look back," the woman warned. But Sarah disobeyed, glancing once more at the diner. The lights flickered out entirely, plunging the place into utter blackness. Something emerged from within. "Get in! Get in!" the woman screamed, panic rising like bile. In an adrenaline-fueled leap, Sarah dove into the passenger seat just as the diner's door swung open. She couldn't suppress the scream forming in her throat as unseen claws pulsed out from the depths of blackness, reaching into the night. As the woman slammed the car into gear, tires screeched against asphalt, kicking up gravel like a signal flare in the night. But Sarah knew they weren't out of danger yet. The shadows still lurked, still watching. Where would they go now? Was there truly any escape from the curse that loomed like a spectre? As the car sped down the empty highway, a haunting echo lingered behind them, a whisper that promised Sarah it wasn't over yet. "Help me." The car rumbled over the cracked pavement, its engine growling like a wild animal. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs. The woman beside her gripped the wheel tight enough to turn her knuckles white. Did you see it?" Sarah finally managed to breathe out, her voice shaky and raw. "It's not about what we saw," the woman said, glancing nervously in the rearview mirror, as if expecting to see the darkness spill into their wake. "It's what we might bring with us." "Bring?" Sarah echoed, trying to wrap her mind around the implication. "What do you mean?" The woman was quiet for a moment, focusing on the road. The headlights painted fleeting images of trees that seemed to lean closer, eager to eavesdrop on their conversation. "People don't just disappear without a reason," she said at last, her voice low. "Those who go into the diner, they don't come out like they used to." The chill in the air settled deep in Sarah's bones. "Like they used to?" she whispered. the words catching in her throat. The woman nodded, her gaze still flicking to the mirror. They think it's all in their heads, but it's not. It's a sickness, a curse. Once it's touched you, it never lets go. Sarah turned to look out the window, trying to shake the images that haunted her thoughts. Memories of her friends' laughter, their warm smiles, how far away they felt now. "What happened to you?" she asked, horror creeping into her stomach. "I barely escaped," the woman replied, "but it left remnants in my mind, whispers." "And yours?" The question bubbled to the surface unbidden. I lost someone in there. Someone who wasn't supposed to be in the diner at all." Her voice broke, the weight of the memory folding into the silence. "I ran, but they may still be in there, trapped." "What do we do?" Sarah felt herself teetering on the edge of a cliff, every fibre screaming for escape, yet drawn into the hellish pit of fate. "We keep driving," the woman said, her determination flickering. "As far as the horizon takes us, until we can put enough distance between us and that thing." But Sarah's unease grew heavier still. The trees blurred by, twisting into grotesque forms against the night sky. "Do you hear that?" Sarah suddenly asked, her brow furrowing. A distant thrum pulsed through the air, rhythmic and chilling, mimicking the very heartbeat that raced within her chest. "What?" the woman asked, straining to listen. That terrible whisper echoed again, sharper this time. "Help me!" "No!" Sarah cried, shrieking now, but the words enveloped her, fateful, alluring, a siren call dragging her back, pulling at her consciousness. "Stop!" the woman shouted, her voice cracking with urgency. "It's not real! Don't listen to it! You'll lose yourself!" But the sound morphed into a cacophony, drowning out anything else. It felt warm, inviting, wrapping around Sarah like a blanket of familiarity. Deep inside, she felt a pull toward it, an inexplicable urge to turn around, to scream. "Keep going!" the woman yelled, slapping the dashboard. "Go faster!" The speedometer climbed, but the sound grew louder, infiltrating the car, clawing at their senses. Sarah's vision blurred. Shadows seemed to reach from the trees, arms stretching toward her. "Stay with me!" the woman cried, panic brimming in her voice. Just then the engine sputtered. The car jolted, wheels losing grip on the road. "Please!" Sarah begged, as another wave of the whisper crashed over her, drowning her reason. It felt impossibly near now, like a lover's caress turned sinister. "Help me!" The woman fought with the steering wheel, grit in her eyes. "No! We're not giving in!" But Sarah felt herself slipping, caught in a web spun from darkness. As the car veered violently, the headlights illuminated a figure standing in the middle of the road, arms outstretched beneath a moon that suddenly seemed too pale, too indifferent. "Help me!" it echoed again, an ache in its hollow voice. The world around them swirled into chaos. Sarah's heart thudded. Was this truly the end? But as the figure moved closer, something in its visage shifted, a flash of familiarity that sent a jolt of recognition through her. "Wait," Sarah breathed. What lay beneath the whispers? "Don't look back!" the woman screamed, but it was already too late. The figure smiled, and Sarah felt the darkness envelop her. The darkness wrapped around Sarah like a heavy fog, smothering her senses. The smile on the figure's face twisted something deep in her core, a sickening lurch that made her stomach turn. She couldn't breathe. The woman beside her screamed again, but the sound fell away, swallowed by the void that engulfed them. In a heartbeat, time lost all meaning. The world warped, stretching into a canvas of blurs and shadows. Sarah felt something soft touch her cheek, a fleeting whisper that told her she wasn't alone. Panic clawed at her throat. A part of her wanted to scream, to fight, but another part, a darker part, was captivated by the figure's call. "Sarah," the voice echoed sweetly, drawing her in. "I need you. Help me." The woman next to her jerked the wheel hard to the right, pulling them back into reality with a harsh lurch. Tires screamed against the pavement. Sarah's heart pounded wildly. "Don't let it take you!" The woman shouted again, her eyes wide with fear as she wrestled the car to steady it. "It's not really here. You have to fight it." But Sarah felt a warmth creeping into her limbs, a strange comfort wrapped in the embrace of that hollow voice. A siren, a lover, alluring and sinister. "Turn around, we have to go back," she shouted, her own voice sounding foreign and desperate to her ears. "No!" the woman yelled, glaring at Sarah with urgency. "Don't you understand? If you go back, you'll get lost. Please, we have to keep moving." The figure stood waiting, still and eerily calm, even as they flew past. Shadows danced around it, swirling in a hypnotic rhythm. Just as they rounded the bend, Sarah stole one last glance in the rearview mirror. Dark eyes met hers, depths of despair and longing that twisted her gut. "Help me!" With a jolt, the engine roared back to life, pulling them into the night. The trees rushed by, their branches reaching like skeletal hands, clawing for a piece of them. Sarah's breath came in gasps, a palpable fear gripping her heart. What had felt like a dream now seemed more like a nightmare, each heartbeat a reminder of the embrace they had narrowly escaped. She turned to the woman, eyes wide. "What's going to happen now? Can it really follow us?" The woman's face was pale, stern lines etched deep into her brow. "I don't know, but if it does, if it catches up to us." She trailed off, her expression haunted. Sarah's thoughts raced. The diner. What if there are others? People who never left. "We can't look for them," the woman exclaimed, slamming a hand on the steering wheel. "We have to just drive, but we need to stay focused. No distractions." As they sped down the long, empty highway, the darkness around them seemed to form shadows of its own, a twisting menace lurking just beyond the edges of the headlights. The air in the car shifted. Sarah felt the weight of 1,000 eyes bearing down on them, suffocating. The world outside felt alive, as if every tree whispered stories of the souls lost to the cursed diner. "Sarah," the woman's voice cracked, pulling her from her spiraling thoughts. "We need to talk about what we saw, what you felt." What had she felt? The whispers, the visions. A fleeting thought danced just out of reach, a truth that hung heavy in her mind. Suddenly the car slowed. The brake lights painted an ominous glow ahead. "What's happening?" Sarah yelled, panic rising in her throat. The woman's hands went slack on the wheel. A deep hush fell over the car, thick and suffocating. "Look," she pointed, voice trembling. Up ahead the road was blocked by a hulking mass, an eerie silhouette flickering in the beams of their headlights. Sarah squinted, heart racing as realization hit. It was another figure, just like the one they had passed, waiting patiently in the dark. Beyond the figure, the glow of a neon sign flickered, bathing them in the sickly light of the diner they had tried so hard to escape. No. Not again. The figure at the road's end turned slowly. Its eyes glowed with the familiar, chilling brightness that sent a shiver crawling down her spine. "Help me!" It echoed once more, beckoning them forward. The woman gasped, bolting upright. "What do we do now?" As Sarah stared into the shadows ahead, the identity of the voice formed a sharp knife in her chest. "Is that—" But the shadows shifted, and a new whisper entered the air, cold and unforgiving. "You cannot escape your fate." The woman's eyes widened. The engine sputtered again, a warning bell ringing in her ears, and then, like thunder in the distance, the whispers grew louder, the building anticipation of something far worse than they had faced before. The air inside the car thickened with an impending dread, pressing down on Sarah's chest like an anvil. The figure loomed in the darkness, its features almost indistinguishable, yet undeniably magnetic. The neon sign behind it sputtered erratically, casting an unsettling glow over the road and illuminating the scattered remnants of a shattered past. "Don't look!" the woman snapped, her voice slicing through the tension like a knife. But how could Sarah look away? The figure's gaze felt as if it were pulling her in. Something about it flickered with familiarity. "What if it has answers?" she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. "Answers?" The woman scoffed, her grip tightening around the wheel as she flashed a terrified glance at Sarah. "You think it's here to help? It's a trap!" The words echoed in Sarah's mind, her heart racing with conflicting emotions. She wanted to understand, to grasp the truth of whatever darkness lay ahead, yet every instinct screamed to flee. The engine coughed again, sputtering ominously. "What do we do?" Sarah's voice was unsteady, suffocated by fear. "Keep your eyes on the road," the woman shouted, her head whipping back toward the front, stray tears trailing down her cheeks in the flickering light. "Just drive, drive." Panic surged through Sarah as she fought to comprehend the situation. She reached for the door handle, her trembling fingers hesitating at the metal. "What if this is it? What if we can't escape?" "Don't say that!" The woman's voice cracked, desperation lining her features. "I can't lose you too. You're not like the others. You fought it off." The words ignited a flicker of hope deep within Sarah. The thought of fighting back surged forward in her mind, pushing back against the crushing darkness that surrounded them. But as she turned to face the figure again, horror reigned once more. Two more silhouettes appeared in the corners of her vision, emerging one after the other like phantoms from the grave. Backs bent at unnatural angles, limbs splayed grotesquely. "Help us!" they chorused in a chilling melody, voices mingling with whispers that echoed all around them. The woman slumped against the door, trembling. No, no more. With a surge of adrenaline, Sarah slammed her foot down on the gas. The tires screeched violently, launching them forward as the world blurred by. The figures danced in the rearview mirror, their faces shifting between anguish and twisted pleasure, palms reaching toward the fading headlights. "They'll follow us!" she screamed, desperation coursing through her veins. "No!" the woman cried, lunging for the wheel as it jerked in their shared panic. "Just focus on your breathing. Ignore them." But how could Sarah ignore the connections tugging at her consciousness? The tandem beings that weaved between worlds, each an echo of a soul trapped in the cycle of torment. "But they're suffering," she argued breathlessly. "I can feel it." A deafening roar filled the air, thunderous with a desire to consume them. As if summoned by her protests, shadows erupted around them, crashing into the car like terrible waves of sorrow. Sarah felt the oppressive weight of their despair clawing at her, trying to drag her down. "Fight! Fight!" the woman screamed, her voice breaking. The car began to shake violently, as if it were a ship tossed in a storm. Dark tendrils reached through the windshield, wrapping around their throats, dragging them toward the abyss. "Sarah, hold on!" With one final push, Sarah clenched her fists, her breath coming in gasps. There was a flicker of light ahead, and with all her strength she focused on it. The weight of the shadows receded, but not without leaving a lingering chill in the air. Just as they burst through, a figure spun around to face them, its hollow eyes burning into Sarah's soul. "You can't ignore what you are." The blinding light swallowed them whole. And in that moment, darkness wrapped around them once more, dragging them back toward the cursed depths. The last thing Sarah saw before everything faded was the diner's neon sign, flickering with a certainty that left no room for escape. Are we free?" she whispered, as the void drew close. But only silence answered, the kind that fills the air before the worst awaits. How much of their essence would they sacrifice to fill the void? The blinding light faded slowly, replaced by an overwhelming darkness that snaked through Sarah's senses, filling her with an icy dread. She gasped, her breath shallow and uneven, as the suffocating silence pierced through her consciousness, a stark contrast to the chaos that had just engulfed them. "Sarah, can you hear me?" The woman's voice floated up from the abyss, laced with jagged edges of fear. I think so," Sarah stammered, her heart thudding against her ribs like a desperate drum. She felt the cold leather of the car seat beneath her fingertips, but the familiarity was a cruel mirage. "Stay close," the woman urged through clenched teeth, her panic palpable. "We need to get out of here." With a hesitant movement, Sarah reached for the door latch. It felt stuck, as though it were resisting her will. The shadows cradled her, whispering secrets in cacophonous tones, each word a reminder of the haunting presence they had fled. What is this place?" she whispered, dread creeping back into her mind. Before the woman could answer, an echo of familiar laughter rang out, childlike, innocent, yet twisted with malice. It wound through the darkness, slithering around them as if it were alive. "They're coming," the laughter teased, filling Sarah with dread. Her skin prickled, and she felt the cold breath of despair on the nape of her neck. "Don't listen to it!" the woman yelled, her voice firm yet trembling. The door released suddenly, swinging wide into nothingness. The woman glanced toward it, her eyes glazing over with a mix of desire and fear. "We need to get out of here now!" They stumbled out, limbs heavy, their surroundings a hollow void where even shadows shied away from the faintest glimmer of light. They could hear distant thuds, like footsteps echoing through the emptiness, coming closer with each heartbeat. Sarah's fingers interlaced tightly with the woman's as they moved forward, dragging each other along a path that felt less like escape and more like a trap. Do you feel that?" Sarah whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "Feel what?" the woman snapped, glancing over her shoulder, her eyes wide and filled with terror. "That pulling sensation, like something is trying to draw us back," Sarah said, her chest tightening as if the air itself was dense with sorrow. "Keep walking," the woman cried, harsh edges of panic invading her tone. "We can't stop. Forward!" But every step was like wading through molasses. An unseen force weighed them down. Shadows danced around the edges of her vision, thick, murky forms with anguished faces. Sarah heard their heartbreaking pleas, their voices wrapping around her thoughts. Help us! Help us! Shut up!" the woman shouted, her voice breaking. "You're not real." But they were real, too real. The agony in their voices resonated with an unsettling familiarity, tugging at something deep inside Sarah. "No. They want something," Sarah murmured, bewildered. "They want us to remember, to feel what they felt." With a sudden clarity, Sarah saw a flicker of light far in the distance, a pulsing beacon of hope amid the chaos. "There! We can make it!" she exclaimed, her voice lifting with a bitter sweetness. "Don't look back," the woman warned, gripping Sarah's hand tighter. "Just run!" Heart racing, they tore towards the light. The whispers morphed into a frenzied cacophony, claws grasping at the air between them, trying to pull them away. The walls of shadows closed in, swirling like a tempest, grief and despair suffusing the air. "Faster!" the woman shouted, her words echoing in the cold darkness, spurring them forward. Just as they were about to reach the light, a figure emerged from the shadows, blocking their path. The familiar gaze, hollow and piercing as ever, sent a shiver of terror through Sarah's body. "You can't escape your past," it rasped, voice a haunting lullaby. They paused, frozen by the weight of its words, an all-consuming dread tightening around them. "Sarah, no, keep going!" the woman barked, struggling against the suffocating grip of the darkness that threatened to engulf them. But before they could move, an overwhelming wave of memories crashed into Sarah, pulling her back into a vortex of torment. Faces twisted in desperation flashed before her eyes, those who had been lost and forgotten, all demanding to be seen. You have to choose, the figure beckoned, its voice now an echo of her own thoughts. Who will you become? Sarah's breath hitched, caught between the light of safety and the abyss of the past. The shadows seemed to grow heavier, whispering her secrets, wrapping tighter around her. Was this truly the end, or just the beginning of something far worse? Can you feel it? She muttered, dread pooling in her belly. And suddenly the shadows let out a howling scream that echoed through the very fabric of the darkness, as if they knew she was wavering. What awaited her on the other side of that light? Would it be freedom or a greater horror? The laughter echoed again, a twisted melody that sent chills crawling up Sarah's spine. It mingled with the roar of shadows, each note soaked in malice, and she felt that insistent tug, abrading at her mind, threatening to unravel the very fabric of her being. Don't listen to them, the woman insisted, pulling Sarah forward. But her own confidence was slipping, the tremor in her voice betraying her fear. The air around them grew thick, like a heavy fog, as figures flickered in and out of their vision, remnants of memories clawing for recognition. Why are they doing this? Sarah gasped, her voice a desperate plea. What do they want from us? They want us stuck, trapped, the woman replied, urgency lacing her words as they pressed on. We're not meant to linger here. In that instant, shadows swirled closer, tightening like a noose. Panic ignited within Sarah, fueling her steps. She could feel the hot breath of the figures against her back, a liminal mix of longing and desperation. Then a piercing shriek sliced through the murky darkness, a voice she recognized from the depths of her childhood nightmares. Sarah, help us! You have to remember. It was her younger brother, a face seared into her soul, lost and tormented. No! She cried, shaking her head violently. I can't! But the world around her shifted, the darkness morphing into a grotesque panorama of regret, cobwebbed memories, guilt-ridden desires, and shadows sculpted from her fears. Each step forward felt like dragging against tar, the past clawing at her heels. Sarah, focus! The woman urged, shaking her. You have to break free from this. Look for the light. Just find the light. Too late. The figure, the grotesque version of her brother, cropped up again, his mouth twisted into a semblance of a smile, eyes hollow and searching. You left me, Sarah. You need to feel this pain. Endure it. A scream bubbled inside her, but no sound unfolded, just an unbearable, silent scream. Sarah felt the weight of anguish press down, threatening to crush her under the burden of her own sorrow. Suddenly, a sharp jolt surged through her body as she remembered the night he disappeared. She could feel the cold metal of the doorknob as they fought. Her fear had driven her to shut him out. No! She yelled, resisting the pull, fighting against the sea of shadows that threatened to engulf her. Him. Sarah, the woman cried, her voice strained. Look at me. Remember who you are. The woman's fierce gaze anchored Sarah, pulling her back from the brink. For a moment, clarity pierced through the fog. I am not my past, she shouted, standing her ground. The shadows recoiled, a ripple of agony coursing through them. The figures shrieked, their voices a dissonant wall of despair. But the light. It pulsed stronger now, an undeniable beacon piercing through the suffocating darkness. Run, Sarah urged, intertwining her fingers with the woman's once more. They made a break for the light, all their fears, all their pain propelling them forward. The ground shook beneath them, the echoes of the tormented chasing close. But as they neared the luminous boundary, something clawed at them from behind. An unseen entity lashed out, ensnaring Sarah's leg, holding her in place. Leave her! The woman screamed, yanking on Sarah's arm. Fight! We have to fight! As they struggled, Sarah felt the darkness clawing at her heart, somber whispers barraging her mind. Don't go. Stay with us. With a surge of strength and fury, she yanked herself free, bursting into the light, pulling the woman alongside her just in time. A flash blinded them. Screams melted into silence. When her eyes adjusted, they found themselves standing on the roadside, disoriented but alive. The night sky cloaked them, and cars hummed by, oblivious to the horrors they had just escaped. "Where are we?" Sarah gasped, panting, disbelief saturating her thoughts. The woman opened her mouth, but her eyes suddenly widened in terror, gaze flicking behind Sarah, the dread creeping back around them. "Not here! Not now!" she murmured, breath hitching. "They're still following us!" Sarah turned slowly, heart hammering, and there, in the rearview mirror of a speeding car, was a shadowed figure watching, grinning, breath misting against the glass like a predator awaiting its prey. "Do you think it's over?" the woman asked, fear now like a shared heartbeat between them. "No, it's just begun," Sarah whispered, the weight of their past heavy on her soul, fear curling in her stomach. Something was still lurking, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Would they ever truly escape? The road raced by in frantic snapshots of blurred trees and distant headlights. Sarah's pulse thumped like a war drum in her chest. She and the woman had escaped the diner, but a suffocating weight clung to their shoulders, a sense that hell was close behind. "What do we do now?" Sarah panted, glancing at the woman whose face glistened with sweat and worry. It was time to rally. They were still alive after all. "Do you think we lost it?" "No!" the woman snapped, eyes darting to the rearview mirror again. "It's not that simple. They've marked you." Sarah's heart dropped, twisting like a knife. She could feel them, creeping closer in her mind, a chaotic blend of guilt and fear. Memories of her brother's laughter, his pleading for help, chased her through the darkness. What if the nightmare of the diner had seeped into them? Would it cling, suffocating every leap toward freedom? The woman slammed the wheel, a desperate determination lurking behind her frantic eyes. "We need to face it. We can't keep running." "What do you mean?" Sarah's voice trembled. "Face it, are you crazy?" Suddenly the car jolted, losing traction on the road. The woman gripped the wheel, her expression determined yet frantic. "It's not just physical. We have to find a way to confront this, whatever it is that invades our minds. We can't let it win." "I'm not ready," Sarah shouted back, the words spilling out in a rush of alarm. The faces, the lost souls, the shadows, pain and regret mounted around her in waves, and she couldn't drown in that despair again. "Then we have to try." The woman's voice shook with an urgency that paralleled Sarah's dread. "Whatever they want, we can't let it control us. This is the moment." Vehicles whizzed past, illuminating their resolve. As cold air rushed through the cracked window, clarity washed over Sarah. They had already begun this horrifying confrontation, in the diner, in the shadows. Jokingly saying they were not their past didn't cut it. They had to fight back to reclaim their identities. "All right," Sarah finally said, her voice steadying in its resolve. "We confront the spirits, the past, but we can't do it in weakness." "Exactly. We rely on each other." The woman nodded grimly, relief flickering in her eyes. "We stay united. Whatever seeks us, we turn it back." They needed to do it together. Sarah clenched her fists, grounding herself in determination. The whispers had lured her to despair, but now she faced something sacred, the strength of their shared struggle. "Sir!" The woman cut off, as a piercing scream echoed from the trees, drawing their attention. It grew louder, thrumming with a simultaneous sense of dread and familiarity, wrapping around Sarah's mind. "Turn around!" a guttural voice commanded, seeping through the cold air like a serpent. "You can't outrun this." "No!" Sarah shouted fiercely, summoning every ounce of strength. "You won't take us again!" The world around her grew chaotic, lights flickering, shadows seeping toward the car. A deep breath surged in her chest, a moment steeped in clarity. She could feel the energy shift, dark forces pressing against her, begging her to surrender. "Be ready!" she yelled, gripping the woman's arm. "This is our moment! We can take it back!" As the car surged forward, reality quaked beneath them. Images warped, figures formed from the darkness, clinging to their thoughts, faces familiar yet twisted with anguish. Each scream was an echo of betrayal, every fleeting memory pulling them into the grasp of despair. "Help us!" they cried out, voices warping into a haunting symphony that threatened to echo in their minds forever. "No, no!" Sarah screamed, fury igniting within her as she slammed her palms against the dashboard, turning toward the woman. "We won't become victims. We control our fate." The car lurched forward, the headlights pushing back the inky depths of night. Slowly, they began to overwhelm the dark shadows leaning in. The figures wavered as they sang a chorus of grief and longing, but Sarah stepped into her power, her will strong. She refused to let their cries define her. In that blazing moment, she understood the horrible truth they carried, the regrets, the guilt, and shook them off like ghostly chains. "I lost you once, and I'm so sorry for that. But we're done suffering. You're not taking any more from me," she yelled out into the darkness. Light burst through the window in brilliant waves, illuminating the road ahead and tearing through despair. It became a shield, shielding them from the grasp of whatever force lingered behind, forsaking their cries. "You see?" the woman yelled in exhilaration. "We're breaking free!" The shadowy echoes twisted and shrieked. The winds howled, clawing at the edges of their resolve. But Sarah's voice rose above it, merging into a powerful chorus. "We claim our truth. We are not what you say." And just like that, the shadows dissolved, their anguished forms dropping away into nothingness. A bright, blinding light bloomed ahead, casting warmth and an insatiable sense of hope across the highway. They burst through it, the dark dissipating behind them as if the shadows that had haunted them crumbled under the weight of clarity, exposed and defeated. They had fought their way through despair, clawed past sorrow, and emerged on the other side, finally free. What just happened?" the woman breathed, glancing back at the road, embers of fear simmering down into relief. "We chose our path," Sarah said softly. "We chose to resist." The car continued down the empty highway, winding under a star-tattered sky. They were still alive, still on the road, but emerging from darkness felt like a second chance, a gift stolen from the hands that would seek to reclaim them. "So, where to now?" the woman asked, a tentative smile breaking through the tension. "Wherever we want," Sarah replied, heart swelling with a new light. "We'll pave our own way." And as they drove into the rising dawn, a new freedom settled upon them. Joy rippled through her veins like a sunrise after the longest night. The road ahead stretched long and winding, filled with endless possibilities. The ghosts they had carried now remained behind, transformed into shadows of hope tinged with resolution. But Sarah knew her journey was just beginning, heavy with the weight of memories still behind, awaiting acknowledgement. "Maybe we should drift along the coast, see where the waves take us," she suggested, glancing at her companion with determination. The woman grinned wide, laughter spilling from her lips. "I'd like that." And as laughter faded into the winds of daybreak, they ventured forth, beauty and terror intertwined on the road ahead, ready to face each twist and turn together, unhindered by the shadows of their past. Each mile pushed them further away from the terror and closer to the promises of a brighter tomorrow. This path was theirs, unraveled and reborn anew, and it felt divine. If you've stuck with this journey and loved the twists and turns, you need to subscribe now. Smash that like button to fuel our storytelling passion and feed the algorithm. We can't wait to hear your thoughts. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories. And don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.